Hey everyone, it's Jake from Optimum, and today we're going to be looking at how to take data entered through Smartsheet forms for survey purposes and turn it into actionable data using Smartsheet dashboards. The idea for today's video came from Nina over on the Smartsheet community forums, who asked basically the same question. They had survey data they're collecting from within their organization that they then needed to present to executives on a dashboard for consumption purposes. What I first did to illustrate this is I created a quick form on Smartsheet attached to a sheet to collect this data that's basically has some different criteria that might be used for survey purposes using some different symbols that Smartsheet has to offer. You can use any symbols, any kind of metrics, anything you want for survey data, but this is just representative of the things that were kind of being used in the question. We also added some fun features like conditional logic in here that you can use as needed to reveal separate fields depending on what responses are given. So once this data is entered by the individual, that data then comes through to the survey responses sheet, where each form response becomes a line in this sheet. So this is where we collect all the data. But then once we have this data, what do we do with it, right? First thing we do is I created a few different reports looking at our different ratings columns as well as our satisfaction column, all with more or less the same format. I also created a metrics sheet to roll up information related to the supervisor specifically. So here's one of those reports that I created. All four of those different reports I mentioned are the same, so I'll save you some time and just show you the one. But they're all grouped and summarized in the same way, right? So basically, these are looking at the underlying sheet I created called the survey responses sheet, and I am just showing the column of the relevant metric. You can show whatever columns you want, and it'll still work, but for today's purposes, we really only need the one column for each metric. So what I did for rating 1 is then I grouped it by rating 1, of course, and then I used the summary feature and counted all the items in each of these groupings, and that gets us the data that we can use on the dashboard to graph this information. So I just find this to be the easiest way to quickly collect this kind of data and then present it on a dashboard. If you need slightly more complex metrics, you can also do this on a separate sheet and run calculations there to get the information you're looking for. So Nina, for example, was looking for the percent of answers for each given supervisor, and for that we needed the information of how many total employees were supervised by each supervisor. So we went ahead and entered that data manually in the left-hand column, and then we're calculating the number answered from that survey responses sheet using a cross-sheet reference. We're then calculating the percent remaining of the total employees supervised, as well as the remaining number, to get two somewhat different graphs that I'm going to show you in just a moment. So from here, we can then create our dashboard and show some of these metrics, right? So what I did is I took our metrics and showed them in slightly different formats just so you can see some examples. We have our column graph here, we have our bar chart here, and then we have a donut or pie chart here, all kind of showing this in different ways. We can show it by count, or we can show it by percentage if we do it in something like a pie chart. I also took our satisfaction graph, which was done in the exact same manner, and showed that down here just in a simple column graph. What you're seeing here is what we get out of that supervisor metric sheet we created, and this is where we're seeing that number answered versus the number remaining, and we're doing that by filtering the columns shown here. So what we did is we highlighted the cells in that given sheet, but then the columns that are shown here are just the supervisor, the answered number, and the remaining number, so we can get this nice stacked look here. And then I'm revealing the numbers so we can see the exact numbers of answered versus remaining for each supervisor. And we can only really get that with a metric sheet in that kind of stacked style, right? Which is why we use a different approach than for the reports. We can also show the supervisor percent response here, which was using that same sheet, but we don't need those metrics stacked for this example since we're kind of including both in the percentage itself. So here we see the total percentage given for each individual supervisor of how many people have responded to the survey out of their total, right? So for Max here, we have 50%, for example. For Ethan here, we have 100%. And we can see those across all of our different supervisors. So that's just a quick tutorial on how to take survey information and turn it into actionable data nice and quick in Smartsheet. Hope that helped you. If you have anything you would do differently with analyzing survey data, please drop it in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.